The following is a Spirit Street production.
All right. This is, the summertime blues. A lot that's not going on right now, but you did get some news out of Utah that we thought was very, very important to bring to you guys. They got a coach in waiting that's coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, whether it's good, bad for Utah's program moving forward. So this is the Big 12 Insiders this summer. A lot of, like I said, Tuesday through Thursday, we got not a ton going on, but this is very, very important. We wanted to get that out to you. This is the Big 12 Insiders.
Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to booming North Texas, home of Studio 73. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Big 12 Insiders again. Today, we got Tim Fitzgerald and Michelle Bodkin. I'm sorry. Thank you guys for taking the time to meet with us. So, first off, we're right around the corner from Big 12 Media Days. Going to be in Vegas. This is going to be my first time being out there, so I'm looking forward to it. Fitz, Michelle, what should I be looking forward to with these Media Days coming up?
Well, I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing, right? Because I've been to Vegas a lot of times now for various Pac-12 things, but this is my first time going for a Big 12 thing. So in some ways, you're going to have to coach me up, and I think I'm going to have to coach you up. So,
gotcha.
But I mean, Vegas is a booming town. I think, it's kind of gone from, you look at what it was looking like in the 90s and the early 2000s. And it was kind of scandalous fun. And I think they're cleaning it up, and they're making themselves more of a sports town and a glamour town and a celeb town. Yep. So it kind of makes sense that these conferences maybe want to place things there, because it just feels like it's a growing, booming place to hold stuff like that. And get the kind of attention that you want it to get. So kind of cool that we get to do this Big 12 thing out in Las Vegas. And I'm really excited. I've never stayed in the Bellagio before, so that's going to be a cool experience. I've stayed in several other places throughout the Strip, but that's a new one. So, and then of course, getting to know this whole group of people that, for the most part, outside of Arizona, BYU, Arizona State, and Colorado, I haven't really dealt with before. So, gotcha. I'm expecting a great time. I'm really looking forward to it, and you're going to have to coach me up on the Big 12 stuff, though.
You're going to miss the Austin, Texas, and surrounding area media, and I sincerely mean this. You're lucky. It's pretty obnoxious. I always try to explain to people, why is Texas so high in the polls? It's because they have the most voters. Right? They just had such a huge media contingent that were just so pro-Texas. Is like, of course they're going to vote for Texas. But this is fun. But I've never done a 16-teamer in 2 days. This is insane.
Yeah. I
mean, you would usually do an 8-team conference in 2 days. When they went to 12 over 2 days, I thought it was a little crazy because it used to be 3 days. It used to be 4, 4, and 4 and really manageable, but it did get long. I don't know, 70 plus players are going to be there. I mean, it's crazy how hectic this is going to be with 8 and 8, but it's fun. It is. And mostly, Brian, as I've told you before, it's a great place to network. Yeah, you get some sound from coaches, and you get to meet some players, but really the real value is the networking end of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to it. Like I said, I've been to Vegas several times, but never in this capacity. So I'm really looking forward to just meeting a bunch of people out there. But Michelle, let's get into a little bit of Utah here. So we got word yesterday came out that Morgan Scalley, and that is the proper pronunciation, is the coach in waiting in Utah. He's the defensive coordinator. First off, I guess the one big question that I have, and I'm sure a lot of people has, does that mean that there is possibly a window for Coach Whittingham to step down, retire? Is there any talk of that as of right now?
I mean, it's kind of been in the talks, I would say, probably since 2021. He always said that he didn't want to be an old coach.
Right.
And so he's going to be 65 this year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I know it's on his mind. and I'm sure it's, something that he's thinking about and processing, when is the right time to make my exit. Cause I think the thing he's most concerned about is he's built this wonderful legacy. And what a lot of coaches, I think, have problems with is overstaying their welcome. And then it starts to nosedive. And then you kind of remember the not so great years rather than like the build up to that kind of peak. And I think he wants to stay on that peak. So, what that looks like for him when he decides to do that, I think this year probably has a lot to do with that. Does Utah really accomplish all the things that we're kind of saying preseason we think that they can accomplish? If they check those off, and Whittingham really does, get to take this team to a playoff and maybe even a playoff win, how much better can you possibly do as a head coach when you consider you've taken a team from the WAC to the Mountain West, a couple of undefeated seasons, a couple of Rose Bowls, possibly various conference championships, and now you've had your opportunity at, the playoffs. There's a lot of coaches that don't even sniff half of that, and Whittingham have checked all those boxes. So I think that's going to play a lot into it, but I know the other part of it is he keeps talking about, is it still fun for me? And right now he's still having a lot of fun with it. So that could also prolong it. I know his current contract runs through 2027. I don't expect him to stick around after that.
Right.
But, does he retire after this year? Does he stick it out till the end of the contract? That's up in the air. And Whittingham's a very interesting person where I kind of feel like he's the only one that really knows what it is he's doing. He keeps that stuff very tight to the vest.
Right. Well, one thing that I like that he's mentioned is that he doesn't want to be an old coach, or more importantly, what you mentioned about, kind of spiraling down. Now, I'm not saying that Utah is spiraling down. I think it's the exact opposite, to be quite honest with you. But we've seen that with some of the other coaches, and it's kind of going through it right now. You look at the TCU with Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson brought that program to just unprecedented heights. And then I don't know if necessarily the wheels fell off, but the wheels absolutely came off. And then they just kind of pushed him out the door. And then he didn't want to go out the door, and it was ugly. So I'm glad that that's not the case with Utah. Because, again, wheels are not falling off in Utah. The wheels, to me, if you're just asking me, I think the wheels are still rolling upwards with this program.
I would say that's kind of what it feels like. And, the thing about locking down a guy like Morgan Scalley is a Kyle Whittingham guy.
Right.
He played safety for him from 2001 to 2004. He was part of the first undefeated season. Then he was part of the second one as a coach on staff. And he's kind of done the Kyle Whittingham thing, worked his way up the ranks at Utah, had a little bit of a downfall a couple of years ago, and had that taken away, and peeled back a little bit, but he since has done the work that, the people up at the athletic department and Kyle feel like he needed to do in order to earn that right back. And it's to a point where I think they felt very comfortable, letting it be known that, he's still our guy and he's done the work that we expected him to do. And I think that's a great thing for a school like Utah, because we've talked in previous episodes that they're very culture based. And who better than someone that started as a player, was a grad assistant, moved to a position coach, moved up to, defensive coordinator, again, stumbled, but learned from it. And has, just kind of continually worked his way up the ranks in a system that he's now very, very familiar with, and can keep going. Because, when I look at a place like Utah, if it's not broke, don't fix it, but can add, the twist to it, his own personal stamps, which is, I think, what has made Kyle so successful, is he never really tried to fix what was happening once he kind of took over. I know he took over for Urban Meyer, but he really kind of took over for McBride.
Right.
Ultimately, because Urban just was not here that long. But, you don't mess with something that's working. You keep at it and you add personal stamps, or you adjust as needed as things change. And I think Morgan's more than capable of being able to do that.
You know, what I don't like about Coach Whittingham is he's 64, 65, and he looks like that.
I know. I know.
Dude, come on. You're making us look bad.
Yeah.
A remarkable coach, but
Yeah.
When you've gone through so many transitions from conference to essentially climbing up the ladder and then moving, sideways into a different conference, not necessarily voluntarily, which is, really these schools are kind of the first forced relocations in the expansion, universe. It's never really happened. Everyone else has said, okay, I want to go here. And I wonder if that plays into it, just having to kind of start over with new places and new coaches. And, I'm not quite as old as him. I look like it. But I don't like to start over and have to reset everything. I like to get in a groove. And I think most older coaches are that way.
Again, this is kind of a hard one for me to get a read on, because I think he's also kind of a guy that loves a challenge. And so, I think moving to a new place and, having to kind of figure out these new schools, but also having this great opportunity. Hey, it's a lot more open to the college football playoff. We've kind of been close a couple of times, have come up a little bit short, but now that it's a little more open, it might be a little bit easier for us to get in there and show what we got. I think all of that kind of stuff intrigues him. Some of the stuff I think he maybe doesn't love NIL, but I think that's a lot of old school coaches. That's a tough one to deal with. Yeah. And I don't think it's necessarily that any of these guys really think that their players shouldn't be getting paid. I mean, if you're advertising the product, you should be getting some kind of cut of that. But I think it's how it's been set up that's frustrating for a lot of them. And I don't blame them. Like, that's not something that I would want to deal with. No. And unfortunately, I think, we kind of have to deal with it as media and talking about it and trying to figure out, what are the rules? Are there really any rules? And, was it fair how this all fell about and how someone ended up with a player? It's a mess. And so, I think it's things like that perhaps, Kyle's maybe done dealing with. And so it's time to let the fresher, younger guy kind of sort that out. But, it's one of those things I could so see, hypothetically speaking, if there was ever an opportunity for Utah to move to the Big Ten, that Kyle would kind of get the itchy finger. Ooh, this is exciting. Now we're competing with all these schools and would love the challenge of trying to figure that out. So I think there's pluses and minuses for someone like Kyle Whittingham. I think he loves the challenge of trying to figure out, how am I going to be the top dog in a new place? But some of the other stuff that's kind of coming with college football, college athletics, I think he's maybe a little bit done with.
Gotcha. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll come back on the other side of this, talking a little bit more about what is going on at Utah. One word from our sponsor, Synergy Financial Partners, and we will be right back.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the vision is to build the world's largest consumer financial education and empowerment company. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to Studio 73.
All right. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. So, Michelle, we touched a little bit on Morgan Scalley, his second time around, that this is the second opportunity that he got. It happened a while ago. The whatever seemed to happen. I mean, I kind of know a little bit of the basis on it. But like you mentioned, he did the work, and the athletic department and everybody was satisfied that he, did what he was supposed to do, and very contrite. I guess I don't really necessarily want to dive into the details of it, because it becomes so controversial, and then that's all anybody ever wants to hear. But having said that, I kind of feel like in doing some research that he's very contrite and very apologetic about what happened. And it seemed like almost an uneducated mistake.
You know what? I think that's exactly what I would chalk that up to. And I mean, for those that don't know, back in 2020, a screenshot of an old text came out, used a word that white people should not use.
Right.
But he had permission from a friend, is what the story kind of was there. And so this was him talking back and forth to a friend. It went to someone it should not have gone to. It got cleared up. It was settled. The person that received the text message that they were not supposed to get, forgave them. The family forgave them. It was let go. For whatever reason, someone decided to bring it back up. And so it blew up again on the internet. So then you're going through the whole, apology thing again. And I think one of the more interesting things as I was kind of watching and going through and trying to figure out, gosh, did he mean that? Was this an accident? Was this banter between, what was this? Is I had a lot of families of Black players, both current, present, that were blowing up my phone doing they're not going to fire him, are they? We don't want him fired. And I was like, okay, you know what? I think that says what this is. If they're willing to stick up for him, because this hurts them, this doesn't hurt me.
Correct.
This isn't something that affects me, but it does affect them. If they're willing to allow him to still be there and want to defend him and want to get their word in that they don't want to see him go, that tells me everything I need to know about this situation. And that's kind of where it needs to go. And the athletic department agreed with that. The rest of the coaching staff seemed to agree with that. And like I said, Morgan did the work. Morgan took sensitivity classes. He really worked to educate himself and to share that with the rest of the team too, why this can be a problematic thing and not to do what he did. And so I think they handled it well. And I think a lot of times, it's hard, and we're a society that wants instant punishment, but I don't think that that's always how everything needs to be handled. I think sometimes there is room to allow people to make mistakes and learn from them. And this was that case.
Right. My thing about it is university in general, you know how they are, and you kind of touched on it. They'll just get rid of you because they don't want to deal with anything like that at all. If it comes up, we'll just get rid of this person. We'll bring somebody else in. You figure it out on your own, athletic department, but we're not even going to remotely deal with this. And if they are willing to say, okay, look, let's take a step back. Maybe this was just a true mistake. And it sounds like a thorough investigation went on, because it sounds like Utah kind of felt the same way. Like I just said, they're like, well, hold on. We don't even need to deal with this. What happened? And it sounds like Utah said, you know what? Okay. While it's not good, but sometimes mistakes can happen. And if there's no room at any time, Fitz and Michelle, for any forgiveness of anything, then, and yes, there are cases where, you know what, something is unforgivable. True, that happens. But sometimes there are. And you have to be willing to at least acknowledge that sometimes. Because if you don't, it's like I said, I'm sure people are going to see this, and then this is all anybody's going to want to talk about. And I'm just like, it doesn't have to be that. It can't just be, okay, he made a stupid mistake, and let's make no mistake about it. It was an ignorant mistake, but you can get past that. And I think he did. And I think it's good for everybody.
I think a lot of times, again, we're too quick to, awful, terrible, you're out the door. And we don't take the time to actually find the lesson in situations like that. And that's the thing, is I think Morgan's in a place where this can be a lesson that he instills in the people that he has come through his program when it's time for him to take over. Right. And I mean, what better way than to have someone that's made an awful, very public mistake, show that there is a way to get around that, and to show that you are sorry, you do care. It's a one-off thing. I mean, at times I think that's, that's the kind of person that I want teaching young people, because perfectionism does not exist and people do make mistakes.
Yes.
And you have to be able to kind of showcase how to get over those mistakes and get better from them.
Correct.
And I think he's someone that can do that. And I think that's really, really important in a head coach.
Yeah,
I agree. That's a word. Luckily, I was raised. I just never used it. But how old was his text? Because it sounded like it made a couple laps here.
So this allegedly happened, I believe, in 2013, and it resurfaced in 2020.
2020 was a weird year. People were spending a lot of time doing stuff like this.
It was a tough year.
Not that it was okay in 2013, but I mean, he's probably changed a lot since then.
Yeah,
and grown up. I agree with Brien. There's sometimes you make mistakes, and one mistake shouldn't cancel the rest of your life. That one snapshot, that one screenshot of a moment doesn't define a person. It just doesn't. Now, if there's a whole bunch of evidence, okay, but it's a sad commentary on what we've become, that we want to define a person by just a split second. And when that may not be the sum of their substance at all. And I would probably agree with that in this case. Sometimes they're just bad people.
Yeah,
correct. And think that's kind of the hard part, is deciphering between the two. And I think people don't want to do the work, like you mentioned, Michelle, to decipher between the two. It would rather just be, well, they did it, that's it.
Yeah.
Versus actually figuring out, okay, is this a good person or is this a bad person? And that sometimes it takes a little work. It takes a little digging to figure that out. And I didn't mean to go off on a tangent about this, but I think it was important for people to understand what's going on here, because I'll just be honest. People will look at me and just say, okay, Brien, as a black man, why aren't you more upset about this? I go, well, number one, I've got a little wisdom to me, a little age. First of all, he didn't say it to me. So that's number one. And number two, what was the context? Context has to matter. I mean, I'm not saying it's good at any time, because that's not even a word that I use in my vocabulary. It's just not. I just don't. Having said that, context has to matter. It just does. And if you're not willing to let that be part of it, then what are we doing as a society? All I'm saying is I'm glad he got another opportunity to prove himself, and that the University of Utah has said, you know what, this guy paid a price, a big price. Now, I read somewhere too, he got his salary cut in half, Michelle. Yeah. I mean, you get your salary cut in half. That's a lot of money. And I don't care if it's 50,000 to 25,000 or $1 million to 500,000. That's a lot of money. So, it's just, he paid a price. Good for him for getting, I'm not going to say get his life back in order, because I don't think maybe that was the case, but at least he changed and understood his mistake, and he paid the price. And now Utah is rewarding him for doing that. I think they're in good hands moving forward. I really do.
I've always really liked and respected Morgan, which is what made that situation so shocking.
Right.
And why I think it was so important for them to do the work, as you said, to figure out, is this a pattern of behavior that we just haven't detected, and he's really good at hiding it, and there's a problem here? Or was this just a one-off mistake that unfortunately shouldn't have seen the day of light, but it did, and has to be dealt with appropriately? And it was more the latter than anything else. Morgan was probably one of the first coaches, honestly, on that staff that I think really kind of saw me and trusted me as a reporter. Because when I first started, I was about the same age as the players, and people were wondering, what the heck are you doing up here? What's going on? And I think Morgan was one of the first to kind of open up and be a little more accepting of me. And then everybody else kind of followed. But, again, that people, make mistakes and they say awful things. I know I've said some awful things that I probably would be mortified if, anybody saw that. But I mean, that's all of us, right? There's always something there. And I think when you try to decide how outraged you're going to be, you have to remember what's in my closet that I would really hate to get out, because it might be taken the wrong way.
That's right.
Or it might not be an accurate snapshot of who I am as a person. And I think Utah did a good job of taking a step back and kind of calmly going through the process, asking people. And like I said, that was something that was very, very curious and shocking to me and really changed my opinion of what needed to happen there, was when I had Black families coming to his defense and wondering, they're not going to fire him, are they? Because we don't want that. That's not what we want in this situation.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Hats off to Utah for being patient with it, not doing that gut reaction that I imagine there was a cancel mob all involved, people just from hopping on board. So kudos to them, because most academic institutions in this current environment would just cut ties, as Brien said.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you, Michelle, for taking the time to meet with us today. We appreciate it, and we will see you. What is it? It's next week, isn't it?
Yeah, a week from today, we'll all be together in sunny, very, very hot Las Vegas.
Oh, it's going to be 117, but it's a dry heat.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the dry heat over that humidity heat any day.
We got that right now. It's like Mississippi outside here.
Yeah, it is brutal here in Dallas, just burning up. Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Michelle. We will be back after we take our final break from Synergy Financial Partners to end the show.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the mission is to change the way Americans plan for their financial future. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to Studio 73.
All right, welcome back to Big 12 Insider. So Fitz, Utah making this move, I think it's a good move. If you get a coach in waiting, somebody that has been in the program for so long and is so invested, I think it's a good move. I always think it's bad when a program brings somebody from the outside to do that. I think that's not going to work. But if you get a guy that's been inside, guy or gal that's been inside their program and is basically intertwined with the university and everything that you do, then the transition is just a smooth transition into the next person. I think Utah has found themselves something here.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's brilliant to find a coach that has been that loyal to the institution, because it's his institution, and has shown no signs of departing.
Right.
And is clearly the guy that should be in charge. If everyone feels that way, then do it. But Brien, I don't ever remember a coach in waiting situation actually working. Am I missing one? I've known they've been named, but quite often it kind of comes apart.
It does, because a lot of times it's kind of what you said. It's they bring somebody else in or they've been there for 2 or 3 years or something like that, and then they just say, okay, well, this person is going to be the coach. I think this one's a little different, just because he's been there for so long, and he's kind of an extension of Kyle Whittingham right now. If he'd only been there 2 or 3 years, then I would say, you know what, you're in for a world of hurt. You're right. Those don't work out. This one, I think it may work out just because of who he is and how intertwined he is with the program. So
I think Michelle might be right, because most coaches want to go out on a high note.
Yes.
But when it comes around, the note's never quite high enough, and they got to keep going until they have to be departed from the university. Right. And that's just kind of an unfortunate truth.
Yep.
And at the speed at which college athletics are changing right now, older coaches might be falling behind, or certainly, there comes a point where I got to learn some new tricks here, and these tricks suck. I'm going to go, just lay in the corner and retire. Right. So this will be interesting to watch. I think if he has the self-control to make it to a playoff and win a game and then retire, and not have his competitive brain go, I'm going back for more. We got to do it again. That's what happens. They're competitors. If they're successful coaches, they want to get after you, and walking away isn't necessarily in their DNA. So if he can do this and pass off the program in good shape, man, it's going to be a beautiful setup for the Utes.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody again. Remember to like, follow, subscribe. We appreciate all your support. This is the Big 12 Insiders. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.